Tenitra Batiste, and yes, I am in Saints country, but I am determined to talk Dirty Birds.
What's up, everybody? I'm Maria Martin. Can't wait for you guys to see the new Sundays collection that just dropped. Also, I can't wait to see what kind of unhinged things we say on this podcast.
I'm Aaron Freeman, and just happy that football is finally back.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and I get to watch a defense that's not coached by James Lake.
ATL! Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcon Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcon Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Falcon Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis, and 11 Alive anchor Maria Martin. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And of course, the Squad Show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So feeding the hot man, if the hot man is 8, we will find out. Also, we got a rookie class and a rookie class 2.0 to talk about as far as our expectations or concerns in week 1. And Jarvis's favorite defensive coordinator is making his debut with the Falcons. We'll talk about that. But first, what we got to get into? We got to talk about the fact that we are excited that game week is finally here. Right, squad? We're excited?
Yes, we are super excited. I can't wait. Oh, my gosh.
Exactly. It just feels like it's been so long since we've been able to talk football. And I can think about Aaron about 3 or 4 weeks ago, literally saying, yeah, but until we get to talk about football. Yeah, but until it's the regular season. Yeah, but until they actually play a game. So, Aaron, your wish is happening. It is game week indeed. So, with that said, Aaron, since this is what you have been waiting for, we are going to start with you. I want to know, what facet of this Falcons team are you looking forward to seeing the most Sunday?
Well, I remember us having a conversation a month ago, right, in the lead of the training camp about, how incredible Michael Penix's leadership is and all that stuff. And I was just like, yeah, man, I'm over the whole, he's a great leader. I want to see him, throw that football. And so finally we get to see him throw the football. And so that to me is kind of the thing that I'm like, okay, all this talk of, him being this laid back, cool, calm, collected, a different type of leader connected with, like, I want to see it manifest on Sunday with him going out there and dropping a 30 burger on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that the Falcons have had so much success against last year with Kirk Cousins. And the expectation is that Michael Penix is going to be even better than Kirk Cousins this upcoming season. So I want to see that happen on Sunday. So that's kind of, for me, the thing that I'm looking forward to. I'm done with all the talking, as you alluded to, T. And I just want to, see what this team, can walk the walk as opposed to talk the talk.
Now, wait, Free, I think you put a little something out there that one-upped what Jarvis has said on the show throughout the season. He has ticked his up too, Marie. He's had an uptick because I think we started maybe in like the 26 and a half point spread. Then we moved to 27. Didn't seem like it was creeping up to 28. Now Aaron's creeped it up to 30. Hell, I mean, what do we want him to drop? A 50 burger Sunday? I mean, where are we going with this? Anyway, Maria, I love your shirt, by the way. And I think it is so indicative of what we are looking forward to, which is Sunday. So what facet of this Falcons team do you have your eye on where you are so intrigued to see what they're going to do come Sunday?
Yeah, it sounds like Free wants a repeat of that first meeting that they had against Tampa last year on Thursday Night Football, 36-30 overtime, baby. That was great. The Kadero Hodge game, loved it. No, I mean, I'm in a similar boat. I just want football to get here. I hate talking season, which is funny because it's literally my entire job. But I just want to talk about something that I can definitively see. Training camp is great, and we get to see these guys to a degree of what they can do. But until you go out there and play a live football game, I don't want to hear nothing, And I'm just so excited to see all of the hype around both sides of the ball. We really don't know what this defense is going to look like. That is one of the bigger question marks. I'm super excited to see those guys. I know Jarvis would love to talk endlessly about the defensive coordinator situation and how we get a new face in there. But yeah, we're excited about the fact that there's a new defensive coordinator. There's new faces on this defense. There's a lot of new. On the offensive side of the ball, of course, you look at Michael Penix Jr., he's going to be the star of the show, or at least you need him to be. So what does he look like? We got 3 games from him, and that's it. So this is the real deal, and he gets tested really early. I think there is no better option than to put them against Tampa, who has won the division the last 4 straight years, going for their 5th straight. And really, it should have been the Falcons last year, but we all know how that story played out. So I think what a tremendous test for this team, and for us to actually talk about football than for them to go up against a division rival. I am freaking stoked. Let's go.
Yeah, Maria, I think you make a great point about the fact that this is an opportunity for the Falcons to make a statement. You've got the team that has won up to you over and over again these last few years, where everyone was saying that you should win the NFC South, but that team won the NFC South. So yeah, Jarvis, I think now, as Maria mentioned, as Free mentioned, it's time to show and prove. And also, I think it's like what Curtis said. I mean, Curtis Case, one of our forever listeners, we appreciate you, and our audience members, says, I feel like a kid on the night before Christmas. And I think that is kind of what it feels like, because it's like you kind of know some of the gifts that are under the Christmas tree, but you don't know every gift that's under the Christmas tree, or if you're going to like it, not like it, how's it going to work, etc. So I think that's a great analogy about how we're all feeling. But for you, maybe that one thing, that one facet where you're like, yeah, I need to see what this is come Sunday.
Oh, yes. Amen, T. Amen. You preaching over there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really feel the aura and the vibes is just, well, I'm talking like a young kid. You know what I'm saying? I'm feeling young today. You know what I'm saying?
You are young, Jarvis.
I was throwing my weight around today. You know, so I'm just feeling myself. So, for me, y'all know what time it is. Y'all know where I'm going. So, hey,
yes, we do.
I want to see that D-line rotation talking about, you know what I'm saying? Yep, I said it like that. For all my West Side people over there, who listening right now, shout out to you. You know what I'm saying? I got to come back every now and then. You know what I'm saying? Go down there. But for me, I feel like Nate Ollie is going to really shine through today. I mean, not today.
I like it.
On Sunday. On
Look
Sunday.
at you.
You know what I'm saying? Like the other day that ends with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm ready. I'm telling you, I'm ready to strap up. I already got my helmet. I just need some pads, baby. You know what I'm saying? But I think Nate Ollie's, acumen and what he brings to the table and what he's been implementing in these guys, and these guys are just true to the game when it comes to football players. If you continue to drill certain things in them, eventually they're gonna spit it right back out. Like he talking about, get off the freaking ball, like GTFO. That's what they've been saying. He's been preaching that, and that's what all you hear guys like Brandon Doyle is talking about. He's constantly regurgitating that because he hears it all of the time. And when people start to see the depth charts and all that stuff, I know Aaron, you ain't really feeling that, and I don't really care about it either. You know what I'm saying? But it just goes to show you that certain guys flourish under certain guys' system. I feel like when you talk about attacking, and instead of two-gapping, that's 2 totally different mindsets, right? So when you have those guys getting off the ball, getting after it, not really being concerned about getting tired because you're going to have a rotation coming in and all those things, it just goes to show you that guys like Dorless, guys like Ruka Row, they were row, and they're going to be
row in there, but okay.
I know I threw an extra in. It's the coffee, I blame it on the coffee.
You're so excited for football. You're just giving through 17 more syllables.
Overwhelming.
Ruka row. Turn me up, Ruka row.
Maria's going in on me today. Yes, I can't wait. That's how we know we're going to have a good show today. So, yes. But yes, the D-line, I'm excited. Nate Ollie, he's one of the assistants that I kind of fell in love with, in the spring, you know what I mean? Because he's with kindred spirits, you know what I'm saying? I have the same mentality when it comes to attacking life. So, yeah, I feel like he's going to shine through on Sunday against the Bucs. Because you know what the goal is, though, T? Do you know what the goal is? We got to put Baker on his back. Put Baker on his back. Yes, I need to see that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I am going to go in the opposite direction of the whole show because I will never let us have a show without talking about Marquise Williams' unit. Ever. So I'm looking to see special teams bounce back. They had a down year in 2024. Young Wade, of course, he was injured. But you know what? I like special teams. I like talking special teams. And obviously, that's because one of my co-hosts, that guy, he's special. So I like talking about special things. Yes. So, yeah, I'm just going to stick with special. Yeah.
Tenitra, it's good that you said special teams because we got to talk to Jamal Agnew yesterday, and just a very simple quote from Jamal. He said the kicking game is back. He's so excited about all of the new rules that are implemented on special teams, and he really thinks that that aspect of the game is going to get a little bit more respect than it's probably had in the last couple of years. So he was fired up about that.
Yeah, and you called out, Maria, the score. You know, you called out the score from the last game, from the overtime, and that could be it. I mean, it could come down to, and we don't want it to go to overtime per se, but if we're talking about the final 2 minutes, it's down to the wire. All you need to do is put Koo in position to kick and win. You want to have that confidence that you can do that. But to your point, as Jamal Agnew mentioned, you want to also have the confidence that your special teams, your punt team, or even your kicking team, should somehow the Bucs score that final before the final score, that they're able to get you in position so that Michael Penix Jr. doesn't have to overdo anything, right? All he needs to do is his job to get Koo in position to win a game. It could happen that way. This could be a very tight matchup come Sunday. Now, the Falcons have officially settled in with Elijah Wilkinson as the starter, as we expected. Obviously, with Caleb McGarry going down for the season, that was probably that final kind of cog in the wheel or kind of paragraph in the storyline that we were wondering about, so to speak. But this show really expected, despite what Coach Raheem Morris said, that it was going to be Elijah's job. That said, Maria, what's your biggest concern now that we're maybe just days away from kicking off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I mean, my biggest concern is this is just your third option at right tackle. And that's, I think, the same concern probably everybody has. And just given the window of time when Caleb got hurt, we had talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I felt like it was a worst case scenario in terms of timing because you really don't have a large sample size. 2 weeks, that's it for him to get ready. And I know all of them are saying, you know, we have confidence in Elijah. What else are they supposed to say? They can't say, well, I don't know, this isn't really a good option. They're never going to say that. And so the good news about Elijah, though, is that he does have a plethora of NFL starts throughout the course of his career. He's got 45, I think, over 4 or 5 different teams. And he started on the offensive line on this team before. So obviously it wasn't at the tackle position. He was at left guard before when Matthew Bergeron wasn't in the mix at the time. So he does have experience, starting experience. My concern, though, is just the 2 week of window time to try to get this guy up to speed. The good thing is this is a very experienced offensive line. It's a lot of continuity. And even though there are new faces, you got a new center, and now obviously we're talking about Elijah Wilkinson, these guys have been around for a long time. So if you are concerned about it, let that be just kind of the one caveat that, okay, that is a good sign that these guys have been around for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the fact that he's been, Jarvis, in this Falcon system in and out. I can remember he's been around so long that you and I had an interview with him at Flowery Branch back when they first picked him up, because I don't get out to Flowery like I used to. But yeah, I think that there are still some concerns. I mean, you just can't help it, because when you are down to, as Maria mentioned, the third guy in line, and you have a gauntlet of a schedule to start the season, and everybody's talking about the quote unquote blind side, although Michael Penix has done his best to kind of diffuse those concerns, you kind of can't help but be a little concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand the concern, you know, when you talk about, like Maria mentioned, a third option, essentially, because Storm Norton would have been perfectly fine with Storm Norton stepping into that role, right? And not really be that big. It wouldn't have been a bigger concern for me. But for me, my biggest concern coming into this matchup is not necessarily the right tackle spot. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about the matchup with Ryan Newsel and Vita Vea?
That's fair. That's very fair.
That's my biggest concern, because when you talk about getting that pressure up the middle, people talk about the blind side all you want. That's fine. Totally fine. And with the Falcons being in the pistol and the gun most of the time, it really doesn't. It kind of diminishes it for me in my mind. I know a lot of people were focusing in on it when Michael Penix came in as the starter, but for me, like the GOAT the GOAT, despises middle pressure. And I'm talking about Tom Brady. Like, he despises that because you know what? It's right there. It's immediate. It's right in your face. And I think that Ryan Newsel has a big task on his hand coming into this game because, you know, the Falcons have benefited from guys being hurt when it came to the Bucs last year, to the tune of 500 yards when Antoine Whitfield wasn't in that backfield, But I feel like with all these guys healthy, Winfield, Vita Vea specifically, going up against Ryan Newsel, being a full-time starter right now, that's my biggest concern because that man is a load. He's a load, and he will give you problems. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, piggybacking on the point Jarvis just made, like when the Falcons play the Bucs, like they always are like, okay, well, we're not going to run up the middle because Vita Vea exists. So, that's just not going to work. So they focus on running outside. And, it's been effective at times in large part due to having a player like Caleb McGarry at that right tackle position who you can consistently rely on to execute those blocks when they run their outside zone or when they're running, another play that they love to run against the Bucs is that crack toss play to the outside as well. And so that to me is kind of the biggest concern with Elijah Wilkinson is that going to be there? Because if you can't run outside against the Bucs and then you're like, okay, well, let's run it at Vita Vea. I don't think that's a winning strategy as Jarvis alluded to for the Falcons. And if you can't run outside and you can't run inside, that means you can't really run. And then that puts a lot more pressure on Michael Penix and the passing game to have to carry the offense. And, again, given the success that the Falcons had last year throwing against this Bucs defense, that isn't like the end of the world or anything like that. That could, really play into the Falcons' favor, but it does make your offense a little bit more one-dimensional. And then that gets into all the concerns about Elijah Wilkinson protecting the blind side and all that stuff. Because if you're forced to have to throw the ball every down, that puts, those guys in unfavorable situations. So that's kind of the concern. It all starts with the run game. If the Falcons can run the ball effectively, particularly when they run behind Elijah Wilkinson, which has been their bread and butter over the years with Caleb McGarry, if they can do that effectively, then everything's going to be good. But if they can't, then all of a sudden you can potentially have that domino effect where it starts to have, negative impacts on the rest of the offense. So that's the main concern going into this game for me.
Yeah, my concern is if feeding the hot man and feeding 8 are one and the same. We'll talk about that when we go and take that under further review. This episode of our Falcon Squad show is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most, so let's break that down. Now, if you think about it, you had a Georgia team last weekend that pretty much showed up in a big way. And so you look at what they were able to do. I know they didn't get that donut on the board that they wanted to get on the board, but ultimately a nice game from them. And they delivered from start to finish. And that's what I know a lot of Dogs fans hope to see throughout the course of this season. And listen, it's just the same as what we've been talking about on this show today, hoping that we see a Michael Penix Jr. make a big play. Or I know Jarvis doesn't care which player for the Falcons actually gets a sack. He just hopes that they get Baker Mayfield on the ground and gets it done, just like DoorDash does. They deliver on Saturdays, and with DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, which is super cool for college football. So stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. So keep the streak alive and fuel your game day with DoorDash. Now, terms do apply, but the promo period is from now to November 18th. So again, save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order it this Saturday. Keep that streak alive. Only with DoorDash. Promo period is through November 18th. So Maria, in Raheem Morris's press conference this week, he talked about, quote, feeding the hot man when he was asked about Kyle Pitts' role in the offense. But who do you envision, and that could be KP, but who do you envision being the hot man, so to speak, against this Buccaneers defense?
Well, I mean, you look at Kyle against Tampa specifically last year, and his 2 highest receiving yard totals in a game were both against Tampa. And so automatically you think, okay, KP should be a guy that they get the ball to often against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. And not to mention, Kyle is really healthy. And I know that everyone was triggered or jaded by me saying all throughout training camp that Kyle looked really good, but he has. And, this is a make or break it year for Kyle. I still don't believe he's going to be the guy that has the hot hand. I still think that's going to be Drake London. And I have so much faith and energy in what Drake London will bring to the table, especially given who he's going to be lining up against for Tampa. And he's been able to be really successful against this Tampa defense as well. And I expect that to continue. I think that Drake is going to take the next step in his career. We saw him kind of have a coming out party, so to speak, last year. And I think that especially with Michael Penix as his quarterback this time around, that's only going to continue to increase. So for me, if I was going to be betting on anything, I would say that Drake London would be the guy with the hot hand. But obviously KP is going to be involved a ton on Sunday as well.
Yeah, I got to go with you on that, Maria, because granted, you mentioned it. Kyle Pitts, nice games against Tampa Bay, almost got to 100 yards in that second game. But when I'm looking at stats and I'm looking at 154 yards from Drake London, I'm going to go ahead and say that was Drake last year warming up to being the guy that we saw be in that conversation with some of the top names in the league, in the Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. I think that's when we kind of started seeing him like, dang, he's ascending, he's moving to a next level. And I would say that we've seen across the offseason him preparing himself to get to even another level. Marie, you also made a great point about the fact that now you've got a full offseason, couple games last season with Michael Penix Jr., so that continuity should show us something even better. But for you, Jarvis, I'll give you a little opening. I'll give you a little grace and say there might be someone on defense that has the hot hand, because sometimes that might determine how many snaps you get, how many opportunities you get, as opposed to just being in situational football. But on the offensive side of the ball, is there anybody that you think, hey, I think that guy is the one who's going to have that hot hand?
I'm smelling Maria when she comes to, Drake London. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel that. I'm on that. I get that. But, I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts because I feel he had success in both games.
Yes.
When they're in Mercedes-Benz and on the road against Tampa, specifically on the road, because he had 2 touchdowns and we had 7 catches for 91 yards. In that particular games, and they were able to take advantage of a linebacker who didn't know what he was doing, and KJ Britt. So I think those are that's the thing that I feel like they can take advantage of, because, even though, you saw some of the leaders in the numbers, they were just able to take advantage of it consistently. Kirk was able to look at that defense and say, Todd Bowles, yep, I found the holes, because they had some success running the football, because Bijan Robinson in both games, he was averaging about 5 yards a pop. So they had success, but it was just hey, we knew we had the matchup, like Zion McCollum and Jamal Dean were at the corner. Those are the guys, same corners from last year. So yeah, Drake, I agree with you, Maria, but I feel like Kyle Pitts can get off in this one too.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, Jarvis, because on the surface, for those games last season, you might say, okay, well, Bijan Robinson only netted 61 and 63 yards on the ground, respectively. But to your point, if you dig deeper into those numbers, anytime a running back is averaging close to 5 yards a carry, that's always a positive. So I think as much as we might have some concern about the O-line and just their ability to open up space for him to be able to run where he needs to, if he can get some good blocking, maybe at that second level, you might actually see him have an even a similar game, just in terms of what he's averaging per carry, but maybe even giving a little bit more on the ground so that there can be some balance in that offense. So for you, Free, when you kind of look at, okay, and I'll even say it this way, Free, when you look at who needs to be maybe the hot hand, so that we're having a conversation Monday about a W, who might that be?
Well, when you frame it that way, I kind of piggybacking off what Jarvis and Maria have said. I think that kind of you need Kyle Pitts to kind of step up in this game, because I think Maria's right. Like, Drake London's going to be the number one. Drake London's going to be the featured guy in on Sunday. He's going to be the guy that, if you're betting on who's the guy that's probably going to get 10 plus targets in this game, it's probably going to be Drake London. I don't know if Kyle Pitts needs to be utilized that much, but without having someone like Darnell Mooney, in the lineup potentially. We'll see what his status is for Sunday. But even if Mooney plays, like, you're probably not going to get 100% of Mooney coming off that shoulder injury that caused him to miss training camp. So you kind of need someone else to kind of step up and fill whatever void that you're getting from having, 90% of Darnell Mooney or whatever that number is. And to me, that has to be Kyle Pitts for all the reasons that Maria and Jarvis have talked about, where, Pitts has had a lot of success against the Tampa Bay defense, not just last year, but in previous years. Some of his best games have come against Tampa. It's a very favorable matchup. And when we talk about all the things going on with Kyle Pitts and the need for this to be a big year, the not having your number 2 wide receiver in terms of Darnell Mooney, and, this being a very favorable matchup for Kyle Pitts, like all the factors and variables, Michael Penix, unprompted, basically saying on the first day of training camp, hey, we're going to get Kyle the ball. Like all of these variables lead to this should be a big week for Kyle Pitts. If it's not a big week for Kyle Pitts, it pretty much kills all the momentum that has been riding, throughout the summer, as Maria has mentioned. So for me, in terms of who needs a big game, like Kyle Pitts needs a big game. Now, again, not expecting him to go out there and catch 10 passes for 180 yards or anything like that. But if they can get, 5, 6, 7 catches from him, a couple of explosive plays down the seam, as we saw last year in both of these Bucs games, as well as potentially being a factor in the red zone, moving the chains a couple of times on third down, like that to me is the type of game that the Falcons need from Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, and I'll go with the others. And the reason I'm thinking about that is because you make a great point, Free. We don't really know what it's going to look like for Darnell Mooney, just in terms of, I think we all kind of expect and lean into he'll play, but how much playing time will he actually get? So you kind of look at, okay, who can be that person or that player who steps up? And my thoughts went to, okay, Kadarius Hodge, or a version of Kadarius. It can be anybody, but
DC Washington.
No. But what I'm saying is like a version of him. So if you have 2 targets like he had, and you have 67 yards, but you catch both balls, your long is 45 yards. That's the kind of game that you need. That's the kind of game you're going to need from somebody. I don't care, Maria, who it is, but if somebody has a Kadarius Hodge-like game, that's the thing. That's who I think, or that's what I think is what's going to be needed, because to Free's point, you don't kind of know what's going to happen with Darnell Mooney. So no, I think that it could be anybody. And then of course, it depends on what ways that Zach Robinson is able to exploit that Bucs defense, because I think that's something to Jarvis's earlier point, talking about the excitement around what Jeff Ulbrich is going to do. And I know we're going to talk about that in a minute, but also how's Zach Robinson going to scheme this thing so that he can take advantage of any mismatches that he might see out there. Now, speaking of that Bucs defense, it really gives Michael Penix Jr. a great opportunity to show how much of an elite processor he is. So who or what, Maria, should MPX be aware of on this Tampa defense?
Well, Tampa loves to blitz. And the good news about Michael Penix Jr., and if you're putting pressure on him, is he gets the ball out really quickly. So you're going to see that a lot. They're going to try to make him uncomfortable as they can. And they're also going to try to mitigate the run game that we know the Falcons are so good at, because if you're taking away their ability to rush and get the ball down the field on the ground, then you're forcing them into these third and uncomfortable situations. And that's what Tampa's going to try to do to Michael. I know that there's a lot of talk about Hassan Reddick and him, trying to get after Elijah Wilkinson. We'll see. I mean, I don't know what Hassan Reddick is going to look like on Sunday. We know how he has been in the past and what a phenomenal player he is, but we'll see what he looks like in a Bucs uniform. But yeah, I mean, for Michael, he's just got to make sure that he stays the course, bring back the play action, baby, and get the ball out really quickly.
Yeah. And what about for you, Jarvis? When you kind of look at MPX and this opportunity for him, what do you think that he should be aware of, or who should he be aware of in this Tampa defense?
2 words. I don't know if it can be any more. Antoine Winfield. He better be aware of what number 31 is. He better understand what 31 is, because that's the key to this secondary, right? Because when you have a guy like Tyke Smith, who's played his way into a starting role with those guys, and hey, man, shout out to the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby getting those boys right. They go in the league and they do well. He does a good job with that. But I think that 31 is the guy. That's the guy. That's the cog right there. Just like Jesse Bates is the cog for this secondary in the back end. He's the glue that's going to hold it together. I think Antoine Winfield is the guy that Michael Penix needs to understand where he is, where he's lining up, what is he showing right before the ball snapped, and where did he go? Which way did he go when that ball is in his hands and he's backing up or he's scanning the field for trying to make his read. So yeah, I think that's the guy that MPX better make sure that, hey, I know what 31 is, and I'm probably gonna go up this way.
Yeah, Jarvis nailed it. It's 31. You got to peek to figure out where he is on the field, because he can do like Jesse Bates and teleport, and you're like, wait, how did he get there? Like, he was that other place, and like somehow he managed to make a play. Like, how? I don't understand how he was able to do that.
Force a fumble right before you go into the end zone.
Yes, like, he's done that multiple times against the Falcons as well as other teams. So like. Yep. You about to score, make sure you get all points of pressure on the football, because he will knock it loose. But in addition to Antoine Winfield, number 31, you got to keep an eye on number 54 as well, because Levante David, for those that don't know, because that man is still going strong at age 72, whatever age he's at this stage in his career. But he's got that old man wisdom, because he knows where the football is going before. Now he's not able to get from point A to point B as quickly as he used to be able to, but he definitely will read your eyes and figure out where the football is going before you realize where the football is going, and that gives him an opportunity to make a play on the football. And so they have that old man strength on that Tampa Bay defense. So in addition to 31, make sure you know where 54 is at all times.
Well, we hope that there's some of that vision, that veteran vision that Aaron just talked about. And we hope that there's some of that speed and agility that Levante used to have that we get to see on the Falcons side, not just for the rookie class for this year, but I'm calling them the rookie class 2.0. We'll talk about that next up. This episode of our squad show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. But Mazda offers more than safety too. It's won more 2025 IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else, but is also focused on every detail, just the way we hope that this Falcons defense will be focused on every detail to get Baker Mayfield to the ground. Mazda does the same, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather, and you can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. Small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So Jarvis, let's talk about this rookie class. 4 out of 5 of them are set to get a significant amount of playing time in their first week. So we can start with the 2025 class, but I also want to go back to 2024 as well, because if you think about it, this really is, for the most part, that class's rookie season as well, just because we didn't get to see nearly as much of them as we wanted to. But that said, we'll start with the 2025 class. Which player do you want to see from 2025 have the most impact?
Which player do I want to see? And then I'm gonna add a little bit more sprinkle on that bad boy. Which player I feel I will see? So the player that I want to see is Jalen Walker, hands down. I want to see 11 get on the field, but there's he got a little door, a little obstacle there. He got Leonard Floyd and Arnie Ebiketie in front of him. You know what I'm saying? Then you got James Pierce that's gonna be on the other side of him, right? So I think when you think about it from that aspect, of like, he's going to be heavy in rotation. So I think that's going to be the reason why. And, of course, this is going to be his first live action in quite some time, right? Dealing with the soft tissue injuries and everything like that. So I feel like that's probably going to prevent him from being what I feel he can be in that first game, right? But the guy that I feel like is going to do something, oh, man, Billy Bowman. Billy Bowman Jr. And I feel like he's going to be one of those guys. I'm going to be sitting up in that press box with like Mr. Burns. Excellent. You know, like, because I feel like he's just the prototypical Ulbrich guy. I've deemed him that, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to take credit for that, you know, hope I'm not right. I hope I'm not wrong, excuse me. But, you know, I feel like he's going to be that guy to that really kind of shines and like, oh, that's why Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris were so excited when they drafted that guy.
Yeah, and I like how you kind of put that in. So I'll add that in as well, Aaron, when asking you about this rookie class and which player do you see making the most impact, or who do you think will make the most impact? So in other words, who's going to see the field, but who's going to actually do something when they're on it?
I got my eye on James Pierce. I feel like he's got a very favorable matchup going up against Charlie Heck, who's replacing Tristan Wirfs at that left tackle position.
Sounds like he's good at football.
You know, I watched quite a bit of Charlie Heck in the lead up to this week to sort of get a feel for, you know, what he's vulnerable against, because, you know, some guys are vulnerable against power and some guys are vulnerable against speed. And, you know, much to my joy, Charlie Heck is vulnerable against everything, right? That's basically what my fact-finding mission is. Like, if you want to throw power at him, you can beat him. If you want to throw speed at him, you can beat him. If you want to use your hands, you can beat him with that. So I feel like, you know, James Pierce, as well as several other players on this Falcons defensive front in that edge rusher room, will have a very favorable matchup and be able to do the thing that Jarvis wants to see, which is, you know, put Baker on his back. So I feel like James Pierce is that guy that can really have a big time impact come Sunday.
Yeah. Maria, how about for you?
I'm excited about all the rookies, but I'll pick one because I just think this so far has been a slam dunk rookie class. I'm talking about this year, not the 2.0. I mean, technically that would be your 2.0 version, but yeah, I mean, I love the fact that every single defensive rookie that they went out and got is going to have significant playing time. That is exactly what we wanted, and it's what you're going to see on Sunday. And so for me, I think Xavier Watts gets overlooked a ton in terms of just the way that we talk about the rookies. I'm excited to see him, and especially because I think he's going to develop a lot faster than some of the others, simply because he is across from debatably the best safety in all of the NFL. And, you know, Xavier is such a sponge. He listens to Jesse a lot. And I've really enjoyed the conversations I've had with X when it comes to, you know, what he's learning from Jesse and just being around him. It's really great. For me, though, it's James Pierce Jr. He has been the most exciting thing to watch in training camp. And that's no shade on Jalen. We haven't seen him a lot. And so, you know, for Jalen Walker, you get out there, like Jarvis said, you want to see what he can accomplish. He'll be heavy in that rotation, especially given the guys that are in front of him, as Jarvis nailed that for sure. But I want Jalen Walker to prove himself because we just haven't seen a lot of it. To me, James Pierce Jr., super raw player, but incredibly talented. And so let him loose. Let him start to learn what works and what doesn't. And the fact that Tristan Wirfs, as you guys are talking about, is not playing, what a great setup for JPJ in his NFL debut. You know, you couldn't ask for anything better for a rookie. If Tristan was there, I'd be perhaps a little bit more concerned. But JPJ also is one of those players who plays like he has something to prove. And those are dangerous guys. And I think that he's going to be such an X factor, not to take that away from Xavier Watts, but I really do think he's going to be an X factor on this defense this year.
Yeah, and going back to what we'll call, or we've coined as, the rookie class 2.0, Jarvis taking a step back to last year's class, which some showed flashes, some didn't have an opportunity to show flashes. So this is kind of their chance to show us what they can do. Who are you looking forward to seeing in that class show what they're made of?
I mentioned them earlier, Ruka Rororo, like no excuses, right? Like this is your opportunity to prove that you are the guy that Terry Fontenot, you know, traded up for in the second round to get, because there were a couple of guys, and we've laid them out. I don't need to name their names, you know, that they passed on to draft this guy. So I think that Rook has not only to not prove to, you know, the doubters, right? Like he has to prove himself right. He has to prove Terry Fontenot right. He has to prove Raheem Morris right. So I think he's in a system that is going to benefit him. So there are really no excuses for him not to go out there and perform on Sunday.
Yeah. What about you, Maria?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I've said this, all offseason, that Rook-a-row-row. I want to add so many more syllables now that Jarvis did that earlier in the show, but Rook, I think that Rook is probably going to be the one that benefits the most in terms of this rookie class. But I'll give you an outlier of this rookie class that we don't talk about enough. It's Casey Washington, who had an unbelievable training camp, and we got an opportunity to talk to him in the locker room yesterday, and some of the stuff he was saying, I hope that Falcons fans get an opportunity to go back and listen, as I know the Falcons post those interviews on YouTube. The game is slowing down for Casey Washington. Do you know how dangerous it is when players admit that the game is slowing down for them? And this is somebody who, you guys have talked about Darnell Mooney and his injury and who knows how much he's going to be used. Casey's right there waiting in the wings to become someone who can be very reliable within this offense. And it's awesome to hear the way that he's seeing the game at this point, and he has such a great opportunity to prove that. And Dex, my dog, is fired up about Casey Washington, if you can hear him going crazy. I'm so excited about this player and just his vision for what is going to happen for him offensively. So yeah, I could talk about Rook for days. He's been my must-see player, especially in this defense all offseason. But I want to throw in Casey Washington at the last minute because he exploded in training camp, fought his way into a very pivotal role, and now has an even better opportunity to stand out with Darnell Mooney still being a little bit iffy.
Yeah, I'm glad Maria talked about Casey Washington because now I get to talk about Brandon Dorlus, right? The third rookie, and it's like synergy and harmony. It's almost like we've done this show many, many times before. I think Brandon Dorlus is the other guy from last year's draft class, and he got some love on the depth chart. The depth charts that we care so much about when it comes to who's starting, and as Raheem sort of said in his presser the other day, who's starting doesn't really matter all that much because you're just going to have a conveyor belt of these guys in and out of the lineup, and ultimately they're probably going to play a similar amount of snaps, and so who's starting is just, hey, you happen to be there on the first play as opposed to the fourth play or whatever. But this is a great opportunity for Brandon Dorlus, who showed a lot as a pass rusher this summer, and you got to see some flashes of him as a run defender, especially in the second half of that Titans game this preseason. And I think the skinny on Dorlus was like he was coming into the league a little bit more developed as a pass rusher and maybe needed some improvement as a run defender, which I think was a contributing factor to why we didn't get to see him last year, because last year the Falcons had Grady Jarrett, and it's like, why are we going to take Grady Jarrett off the field in passing downs? We need you to eat some of those run defending snaps, and that wasn't really something that Dorlus was, necessarily prepped to do. And so this year, you don't have Grady Jarrett, and it's like, okay, well, we need someone to help us out on passing downs on the interior. So Dorlus, you're kind of that guy that's going to come up in addition to, giving us whatever improvements you've made in terms of your run defense. So I think this is, a great opportunity for all of these, rookie class 2.0, these 2024 picks. But Dorlus really has an opportunity to, again, because of what Jarvis mentioned, there's a lot of expectations on Rook-a-row-row to kind of fill those Grady Jarrett shoes coming from Clemson, being the second round pick, trading up, all that stuff. But Dorlus kind of flies under the radar a little bit because there's not as many expectations, and he can just go out there and ball, and then everybody's going to be like, oh, wow, I didn't think Brandon Dorlus was going to be this sort of guy, but he's kind of poised to sort of fill some of that void left by Grady Jarrett in a major way.
Yeah, and I think you guys have a good points about all of those guys being opportunities for the Falcons to see sort of the upside, but there might be some who, just based on what we've seen or maybe not seen, especially throughout this offseason, whom we have concerns about. So Maria, when you look at the rookie class for not just this year, but rookie class 2.0, who do you have the biggest concern about for Sunday?
Maria, you're muted.
Oh, Maria, I think it might have muted you.
We're back. No one wanted to hear me talk about who I was concerned about with these rookies. Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't know what kind of omen that is, but yeah, I feel like and it's unfortunate because Aaron just went on this very eloquent rant about Brandon Dorless. He would be the only one that I would be most concerned about, given the fact that we just haven't seen enough from him. Now, does that mean that he's not capable? Sure. I don't think that that's what I'm saying. But what I think with Brandon is we were hoping that Jimmy Lake would unlock something with him, which don't want to go there with Jarvis. Don't want to unlock all of those skeletons.
Please,
but
thank you.
You're welcome.
I got that off my chest in the beginning of the show. So yeah.
I know. Just wanted to reiterate, I'm trying to save you because I'm your friend, and I'm trying to save the audience because I'm also friends with them. But for me, does this defensive staff know what to do with Brandon Dorless? That's my concern. So it's not necessarily Brandon Dorless specifically related. It's does this staff know exactly where to put him? Because he has a great ceiling as a player. And when they drafted him, we were all so fired up and said, this is somebody who could contribute on defense early and often. Yet we haven't seen any of that. We don't know what it looks like with Brandon. So are you using him to his strengths and his capabilities? And, maybe this defensive staff does that. Nate Ollie brings such an energy and I think an IQ when it comes to the defensive line that we have not seen recently. And that's no shade. I'm just saying, I think that he would probably be the X factor to unlock that for Brandon. So I was going to be concerned about anyone. It's less about Brandon specifically. So that's like a roundabout way of answering your question. So less about him, more about does this defensive staff actually know how to use this player?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think for me, I have to go with Xavier Watts because that's the guy that I felt that was going to need some time to get acclimated to the NFL game and learn and kind of watch a little bit. And then here we go. Hey, Xavier Watts is the starter. I was like, oh, okay, all right, okay. That's what y'all gonna do. Okay, I understand. But for me, because that safety thing is different. It's different, like because you guys know what everyone is doing. Everyone. And you can't be out there like, oh man, Jesse, what do you do if the 2-man on this side runs a stop route and we're in cover 4? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I do? No, you can't do that. You got to be able to figure that out for yourself, sir. So I think that, now granted, like being an understudy, having him being your mentor to lean on or whatever that stuff, all that I get it. I understand that. But like when it's 3rd and long and you sitting up there not where you're supposed to be and you give up that play because you're not aligned where you're supposed to be and you were beat before the snap, those are some of the things that can kill you. You talking about extending drives. Baker Mayfield, that's what he does. He extends plays because he only like 5'11". You know what I'm saying? I know people say he's 6'1", 6'2".
No, he's not.
Man, about 5'11 3/4. So hey, he got to see what's going on. So like that, because that's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. We're going to be feeling like, oh man, the Falcons feel like they can't get to the quarterback. It's going to be better. Pass rush is going to be better. Sure, no doubt. But there are going to be moments where Baker Mayfield is going to extend that play, and it's going to be 4, maybe 4.5 seconds in. And you're like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting this one, coach. He ended up breaking this right off and started coming back towards Baker, and he completed a pass for 15 yards, right? And they got a first down. So all of those things like that, I feel like, Xavier Watts probably needed to kind of sit back and watch a little bit. But here we are.
Shout out to the short kings, like Baker Mayfield. But
hell of a quarterback, though.
For a lot of the same reasons that Jarvis is talking about Xavier Watts, to me, my concern is with Billy Bowman. Right when we get into those 3rd and longs, okay, hey, Mike Evans, let's move that 6'5", 230-pound wide receiver into the slot and put him on the 5'10", 190-pound nickel corner that's playing his first NFL game, and let's see, if he can, just, hey, Baker, just throw it up, on 3rd and 7.
Don't have to do much there, yeah.
Like what is Billy Bowman going to do in those types of situations? So those are, not to mention Emeka Egbuka, the rookie sensation for Tampa Bay, and he'll get some opportunities in the slot along with Sterling Shepard and whatnot. So I think this is going to be a big test for Billy Bowman. It's not to say that he's not capable of, passing that test, but it does concern me where we've seen last year with D. Alford, where teams were like, oh, this guy can't cover our number one wide receiver. We'll just keep spamming this and this specific matchup. And, you know, I know people are like, oh, well, we'll just put AJ Terrell on Mike Evans. Well, you know, I hate to break it to you guys, but AJ Terrell historically does not do well against Mike Evans. So, like, I don't know if that's going to solve that problem.
That's a lot of people free.
Yeah. You know, Mike and Evans. Like, you know, it's not a shot at AJ Terrell. Like, Mike Evans is Mike Evans for a reason. He's probably the hardest wide receiver from a physical standpoint to match up with. That's why he's been so consistent and successful for 11 or whatever, how many ridiculous 1,000-yard seasons he's had so far his NFL career. So to me, you know, Billy Bowman, I think, is going to have that challenge come Sunday.
Are you classifying Billy Bowman as a short king?
I mean, if the shoe fits, you know.
Oh, okay. I just want clarification on that part.
There's nothing he could do about that, Free. Like, that's how he was born.
Well, actually, you can stand on your stacks, and it does make a difference in certain situations. Just think. How did Brick get a game ball? We'll tell you. Next. This episode of our Falcon Squad show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is actually here because there is Thursday night football, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. How cool is that? So if you love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, whether it's player props, building a same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds, go for it. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Well, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to get started, because FanDuel is the place where you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Jarvis, I'll start with you because I know you've been chomping at the bit to talk a little bit more defense. Jeff Ulbrich, of course, will make his debut as the defensive coordinator for the Falcons Sunday. So who do you think is that guy that he'll be able to lean on to make this Sunday his coming out party?
You know, like when you think about this starting edge players, right? The guys that are going to start the game, Leonard Floyd and Arne Ebiketie. I feel like those two, that combination, I know I'm cheating a little bit, but I'm going to go with two people. Leonard Floyd and Arne Ebiketie are going to be those guys that I feel to kind of get the party started, right? Like because the goal for this week, it's all over my house. It's not really all over my house, but in my mind, it's all over my house. Put Baker on his back. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need.
Please tell me you have at least one of those in your house.
I'll make one. I'll have one by Sunday.
All right, perfect. Anyway.
Because I need that to happen. Y'all don't understand how much I need that to happen. Because, you know, with guys like Leonard Floyd, who's a hired gun, you know, hey, 1-year deal. Hey, you know, we've had some interesting feelings and thoughts and, you know, consequences from 1-year deals, you know. So, hey, I need 56 to go ahead and, you know, make good on that. And then I need 17 to continue to ascend and Arne Ebiketie and be that guy that we feel that he can be, right? Like, he's been progressing at his pace. He's been showing you, hey, I can do this thing. I think this is the year that going into a contract year, because we know how that goes. Yeah. And Leonard Floyd, I'm sure he wants to get another contract. Hey, you know, I can get another $10 million deal or whatever. Yeah, sign me up, coach. So, yeah, those are the two guys I feel that Jeff Ulbrich is going to lean on, because third and long is the money down. And if those guys are out there, hey, it's a good chance that Baker will be on his back.
Yeah, for you, Maria, when you think about Jeff Ulbrich, the excitement around him being the defensive coordinator for the Falcons, taking this defense where everybody hopes they'll be able to take it. Who does Jeff Ulbrich need to see a good game for in order to make it 1-0 for him as DC for this Falcons team officially? DC.
Well, yeah, first of all, football is chess not checkers. And what better way to play chess than going up against a first-time offensive coordinator in the NFL? Because that's what the Bucs have. Josh Grizzard has a long tenure in this league, yet he's never been an offensive coordinator. First-time coordinator at any level, by the way. So this will be an interesting game for him, depending on how much control. I don't know how much control he has on this offense. I would imagine quite a lot. But for Jeff, what a great scenario for him. And I think he needs to lean very, very heavily on one guy specifically. Jarvis, you took two, so I'll take one back. Leonard Floyd. You bring veterans into the fold to this defense because there are so many young faces. Leonard is a veteran pass rusher. You brought him in for that element, but you also brought him in to bring along the younger pass rushers. And that's exactly what Leonard's going to do. It's not only a lead by example situation for him, but it's also just how he can bring them in vocally, verbally, whatever you want to call it. I think that he is going to be someone that needs to have a consistently good week each week for this defense to really be effective. That's why you bring him in to Atlanta. When you have guys that have veteran leadership that exit the team, i.e. Grady Jarrett, up there, up front, because we know Jesse Bates, Caden Ellis, forget about them for a second. We talk about them enough, and they're always an X factor. You don't have to worry about those guys. But for Leonard Floyd to bring in that missing piece, I think is going to be so critical for this defense this year. And I think especially starting on Sunday against a first-time play caller, amazing. I think he can do really great things.
Yeah, and there's some questions about the health status of several members of that offense for the Bucs free. And not that you want that to be the reason that you have a good game, but hey, like, you can't help who takes the field and who you have to line up against. So that said, there may be some opportunities if Jeff Ulbrich schemes this right for that defense to have a big day. But what does it look like? Who's that one guy where you're like, okay, now if this guy has a big day, I for sure know that Jeff Ulbrich's winning.
Yeah, Maria mentioned him. Let's go with Jesse Bates. You know, he's the low-hanging fruit here. He's had a lot of success against this Bucs offense these last couple of years since coming to Atlanta. You know, had some success against Baker Mayfield when he was the Cleveland Browns quarterback back when Jesse was with the Cincinnati Bengals. So this, to me, is another opportunity for Jesse Bates to make that sort of game-changing play with some of the pass rush that Maria and Jarvis are talking about. If this pass rush can get after the quarterback and get Baker on his backside, as they say, that will allow someone like Jesse Bates to be as aggressive as we know Jesse Bates loves to be, you know, out there cheating, doing his thing out there at 3 a.m., just roaming the middle of the field. We talk about Antoine Winfield teleporting. That's something that Jesse Bates does regularly. You just can't keep, a lid on him. You need to put a freaking bell on him or something like that to try to figure out where he is. But I do think like this is a game, T, that as you talk about with, you know, the Bucs not necessarily having their full arsenal of firepower in terms of their weapons with Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan and Cade Otton potentially out of the lineup, but they still have, you know, some weapons, as we've mentioned, Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka, et cetera, you know, Bucky Irvin, Rashad White and whatnot. And so my expectation kind of is similar to what we saw last year in both of these games, where this may be a shootout and that one sort of turnover could be the difference in determining, you know, who wins this game, taking one of those possessions away because these teams are going back and forth. And so I think if Jesse Bates can, you know, contribute to creating that turnover, that will be a huge boost for Jeff Ulbrich, his defense and sort of how aggressive that they want to play.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked a lot about who we feel would be that key person for Ulbrich, but I'm going to go bigger, Jarvis, as we wrap up right before this opening weekend, if you will, and home opener, of course, Falcons against the Bucs on Sunday. Give me two things. And Maria, Free, want the same from you guys to wrap us up. 1A is player of the game. You know what? Let me flip it. 1A is keys to the game. So give me your KTTG. 1 key to the game, and 2 player of the game for the Falcons to walk away with a W.
It has to be get 7 to rock in the run game and the pass game. Start there. And obviously, put Baker on his back. Come on now. The man needs to be ready to take a nap once this game is over with, because that's the only way you're going to be able to get a win in this game. Because I talked about my average points. Like, I'm at 28 now, officially I'm at 28 points a game. I think in the first game there's going to be a little sluggishness because you didn't play in the preseason season. So for me, I feel like that's the most important thing for them, is to making sure that you don't put the ball in the hands of Michael Penix to try to win you the game. You do that by getting the rock to 7 in the run and the pass game, and also you got to put the quarterback on the ground, because if this offense somehow gets rolling, you have to be able to sustain that lead by putting the quarterback on the ground, right? Like, because if they're forced to be in a situation where they have to throw the football, you got to be able to put the quarterback on the ground.
Indeed. And Maria, for you, your 1A and your 1B. 1A is your player of the game in order for the Falcons to get a dub, and your KTTG.
That echo in Jarvis's room goes crazy. Okay. Like, literally goes crazy. X factor for me.
I get I put on there.
Yeah, man. Wow. That was nice work. My player of the game for the Falcons, I'll go really simple. Low hanging fruit, as Aaron likes to put it. Michael Penix Jr. We have not seen him in the preseason. We only saw, as we have illustrated so many times, him in 3 regular season games last year. The Falcons staff keeps talking about his age, and that's great. Age in the NFL, though, that don't matter. How many games have you played? How many games have you started? And that's how I measure age in the NFL. You can be older than Kyle Pitts all you want, but until I see just what he looks like on a consistent basis, he's going to continue to be my X factor. He's going to be the one that delivers everything on offense, and he will be the deciding factor for them offensively on Sunday. And then for me, I have to agree with Jarvis. I mean, if you were to illustrate all the quarterbacks that the Falcons are playing this year and you rank them in terms of who they absolutely need to get rid of in a game, Baker Mayfield is towards the top of that. He's hunting down an MVP caliber season. This is somebody who has really found his footing in Tampa Bay. Make sure his footing kind of gets a little bit loosened up on Sunday. I think that's going to be really important.
Super loose. We need to be super loose, Maria.
Super loose.
And Maria, I'm going to say, I don't think that's low-hanging fruit for you to call out Michael Penix Jr. I don't think we've actually talked about him enough this show, and how critical it will be for him to come out of the gates looking like that dude. So no, I don't think that's low-hanging fruit at all. I think that's a great call as your player of the game. Free, how about you? Your player of the game come Sunday, if this team is going to go 1-0, and your number one key to getting that win.
Well, T, you just did a great setup, because I'm gonna pump Michael Penix on this to close out the show. To me, it's get off to a fast start is my key, and if Penix goes out there and balls, that's going to be the reason why the Falcons win this game. I know Jarvis like, hey, let's feed Bijan. I get it. I want to see a man walk on water as well, but at the end of the day, it's going to be about Michael Penix, because a lot of things that Maria said, right? We haven't seen him in the preseason. The Falcons insist, hey, not going to be a problem, right? We saw him come cold off the bench last year and produce. But here was the thing: when you watch those 3 games with Michael Penix, he usually in the passing game didn't get going until like midway through the second quarter, right? And I don't know if the Falcons can afford going up against this Bucs offense to kind of slow play this, for a quarter and a half. And, this is a 10-7 sort of game or whatever, as we get into that 4-minute drill just before halftime or whatever. Like, I think you need to see this offense get off to a fast start early. Again, Bijan is going to be a big part of that, but I do think Michael Penix in this passing game can't afford, to waste the first 20 minutes of the game just trying to get into a rhythm. So for me, Penix is going to be the key. If they can get him off to a fast start, get him into a rhythm early, Zach Robinson is going to be a big part of that, and the offensive line and all that stuff is going to be a big part of that. But if they can get him into a rhythm early, that's going to be, I think this be that sort of rocket ship for this offense to get the 30 burger that, I'm sitting here wanting to see. Because again, Raheem said, hey, we don't get off the slow starts. We don't need to worry about playing guys in preseason. I'm like, okay, then drop 35 points against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, week 1. Let's get, 7 on these first 3 drives, these first 15, 20 scripted plays or whatever. I want to see it. So, they've set it up for Michael Penix to be great. I want to see greatness.
Greatness indeed. So last week you got the NFC South preview, and it's not too late to binge every Locked On division preview. Be the most informed NFL fan in an 8-episode series, bringing you every division winner, breakout star, and Super Bowl contender. Find the link in the description to the Locked On NFL playlist on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, thanks to our everydayers for making the Falcon Squad show your first listen of the day. For Aaron Freeman, Maria Martin, and Jarvis Davis, I'm Tenitra Batiste. We will see you hopefully on the other side of the dub.